Our film opens with a couple traveling in their car with their young daughter on the occasion of Thanksgiving. We learn that the man's name is Ray, his wife is Joan, and their little daughter is named Perry. We find that Ray constantly argues with Joan, and we learn that their relationship is very tense and that they are basically planning to get divorced, but they hide this from their daughter so it will not affect her psychologically. Perry hears nothing because she is wearing headphones and listening to music. Meanwhile, Perry's device runs out of battery and the music stops, so they stop talking and pretend in front of her that everything is fine and that nothing has happened. Perry asks to go to the bathroom, so Ray parks at the first gas station they come across. Joan takes Perry to the bathroom, while Ray goes to the store at the station to buy a battery for his daughter. He takes the batteries and a drink for her and buys a few things for himself, but when he is about to pay, he finds that the money he has is not enough, so he puts the batteries and the drink back and only takes his own items. When he returns to the car and meets Joan, he tells her that he did not find what Perry wanted. As he is about to start the car and leave, Perry tells them that her music device is missing, so they begin searching for it everywhere inside the car. Joan goes to look for it in the bathrooms in case it was left there, and Ray gets out to search in the back seat. He takes Perry out of the car, but accidentally spills his coffee on the seat. He sits down to clean it and is distracted from his daughter. Perry leaves him and goes for a walk. She notices a new construction site and finds a balloon attached to a wall there, so she heads toward it. But as she gets closer, she finds a frightening-looking dog that appears from behind a large barrel and approaches her. She becomes scared, screams, and calls out to her father for help. Her father indeed notices her standing at the edge of the construction site and tries to reassure her so she will not move and fall. He throws a stone at the dog to drive it away from her, but she panics and falls anyway. Ray jumps after her to save her, but he loses consciousness. When he later regains consciousness, he sees Joan rushing toward him and finds that Perry is badly injured and unconscious. Ray is also injured, but not seriously, and he is not fully aware of the world around him. His wife comes to him crying, holds him, and keeps screaming at him hysterically. He pushes her away and she falls. Then he closes his eyes and opens them again, turns his back on them, and finally regains full awareness. He finds that his daughter has finally regained consciousness, but her arm is still hurting badly. He takes her and Joan, puts them in the car, and drives quickly to the hospital. When they arrive at the hospital, Joan and Perry sit in the waiting area, and Ray goes to register his daughter for examination. The three of them wait for their turn, but Perry is crying from the pain, so Joan tells Ray to go and hurry the reception staff. He goes and speaks with the receptionist and explains his daughter's condition. She has him sign some papers and tells him to sit and wait. He returns and sits again, and Joan apologizes to him for the way she spoke to him in the car. After a while, a nurse comes and calls out his name. All three of them go to a room. The nurse wants to record some information and asks them strange questions, and she wants Ray to sign a paper agreeing to organ donation. Ray refuses and is surprised by this strange request, but everything the nurse says is along the same lines. Ray becomes angry and asks her to leave them alone, and she actually does leave. Another nurse then enters and takes them to the examination room. Perry lies on the bed, the doctor examines her, and says that her arm needs to be put in a cast. He also notices that Perry hit her head hard when she fell and tells her parents that she will also need a CT scan of her skull to make sure that nothing serious has happened that could affect her later. Her arm is put in a cast and she is seated in a wheelchair and taken to the radiology room. Since the rules allow only one person to accompany the patient, Joan goes in with her, while Ray remains seated outside waiting for them. Ray says goodbye to them and goes to sit in the reception area. Time passes and Ray falls asleep from extreme exhaustion. When he wakes up, he realizes that he has been sitting for a long time. He goes to ask the receptionist about his daughter's condition, but the woman at the desk is a different employee due to a shift change, and she knows nothing about what he is talking about. She asks him to wait until she checks his daughter's name in her records. He sits and waits until she finishes, but she does not call him. He gets up again and goes to her, and she tells him that his daughter's name is not listed in her records. Ray becomes angry. The receptionist continues searching for his daughter's name in the previous shift's records, but finds nothing. Ray becomes even angrier and demands to see the doctor who examined Perry, but the doctor has also left because his shift has ended. Ray screams and slams his hand on the desk. The receptionist calls the staff in the radiology department and asks them if anyone has come to them today. They tell her that the only person who came to them was an elderly woman. Ray is furious and completely confused and asks where his family has gone. The receptionist begins to think that he is mentally unstable and tells him that perhaps he came to the hospital by mistake. But Ray tells her that this is impossible because he clearly remembers bringing his wife and daughter to the hospital and taking his daughter to the radiology room for the examination. But the receptionist ignores him and moves on to the next person to speak with them. Ray does not remain silent and enters the restricted area of the hospital, but the nurses and security guards catch up with him and stop him. He tells them what happened to him and his family, so the doctor on duty checks the records himself and tells him that neither his wife's nor his daughter's name is listed. At that moment, Ray sees the nurse who had taken them to treat Perry's broken arm. When the doctor asks her whether she has seen Ray before, she says that she has indeed seen Ray, but she knows nothing about the daughter or the wife he is talking about. All she remembers is that Ray came to the hospital alone with a head injury and was treated for it. Ray becomes furious and accuses her of lying, and at that moment the doctor tells Ray that the fall may have affected his brain and his thinking. Ray then tries to attack the nurse, but security intervenes. The nurse gives him a sedative injection, and they take him to be locked in a room until they decide what to do with him. The sedative makes his vision blurred and he staggers from side to side. He keeps searching the room for anything that might help him, until by chance he finds an antidote that cancels out the sedative's effect. He injects himself with it and finally regains consciousness. He tries to open the door but finds it locked, so he breaks the glass and escapes. He runs down the hallway feeling dizzy because the sedative has not completely worn off yet. People in the hospital notice him and security chases him, but he gets ahead of them, exits the hospital, and gets into his car. While he is sitting in the car trying to regain his full awareness, he sees a police car pass by. He quickly gets out, stops them, and tells them about his wife and daughter's disappearance. The police doubt his story until he shows them his ID, then they believe him and decide to help. He enters the hospital again accompanied by the police, and they go to the same doctor who had been speaking with Ray earlier. The doctor tells them that it is possible that a mistake occurred in the records. Ray then asks to enter the radiology department, and the doctor agrees. He takes them to the elevator, but what surprises Ray is that the doctor takes them to the third floor, while Ray clearly remembers that his wife and daughter went down to the underground level. When they reach the room, they find no records or data about Perry. Ray asks to see the doctor who examined his daughter that morning. They agree and call him to come. At that moment, the receptionist arrives with a paper that Ray had signed earlier, but the paper proves nothing regarding the presence of his wife and daughter. The morning doctor arrives and says that Ray had indeed come earlier with a head injury and that he treated him. He also says that he advised Ray to have a CT scan of his skull, but Ray refused and said that his wife, Abby, was waiting for him outside. The police are surprised because Ray had told them that his wife's name is Joan, not Abby. Ray tells them that Abby was his former wife, who died 8 years ago. He accuses the hospital staff of kidnapping his family and asks the police to check the surveillance cameras, saying they will then know whether he is lying or not. They all go to the surveillance room and watch the morning recordings, but there is no trace of Joan or Perry in the footage. Ray tells them that the problem must be with the camera angle and that it does not show everything. The police begin to believe that Ray is lying and fabricating the whole story. Ray then asks them to go with him to the gas station where the incident happened to prove his words. At that moment, they find Perry's scarf lying next to the bed where she had been sleeping that morning, but the police demand stronger evidence. The doctor says that Ray's physical and mental condition is unstable, and they have him examined by a psychiatrist. The doctor sits with him and asks him about what happened that morning and about the accident, and also asks him about Abby. Ray tells her that Abby died 8 years ago in a car accident and that he was unable to save her because he was drunk. He starts crying in front of her. The psychiatrist realizes that Ray is not lying to her and that he is truly going through a severe psychological crisis. She goes to the police and tells them to go and check the scene at the gas station, because Perry and Joan might still be there. The police then go with Ray and the psychiatrist to the gas station. They find Perry's music device lying on the concrete and discover a large pool of blood on the ground. The police are certain that the blood is not Ray's because his injury is not that severe. Because of the blood and the 2 missing persons, the police consider the location a crime scene. Ray becomes even angrier and claims that the police planted the music device and created the bloodstain to frame him and cover up what happened at the hospital and the kidnapping of his family by the hospital staff. The psychiatrist stands calmly and tries to soothe him, asking him what happened to Perry. He stammers and cannot form two coherent words. She then asks him whether he pushed his daughter into the hole, but he says nothing and remains seated in silence. The police arrest him, suspecting that he is the one who killed his wife and daughter. But Ray grabs a gun from a police officer and takes the psychiatrist hostage. He forces them into the gas station at gunpoint, locks her inside with him, and takes her ID card. He then goes to the hospital carrying the gun, determined to reach the underground floor where he remembers his wife and daughter had gone. On his way through the hospital, he passes the nursery room and, upon seeing the children, remembers the accident of his wife Abby and the unborn child she was carrying. He continues to the doctor's area and disguises himself as a doctor. He reaches the elevator and calls it. While standing there, he is seen by the same security officer who had confronted him earlier. As soon as the guard sees him, he tries to arrest him, but Ray resists. The elevator arrives, and they struggle inside it until Ray manages to choke the guard to death. He then reaches the underground floor and finds his daughter's toy in the trash. He realizes that Perry is nearby. He pulls out the gun and walks forward until he sees two nurses pushing a cart full of small boxes containing human organs. At that moment, he understands that they kidnapped his wife and daughter to steal their organs, and he also understands why the nurse earlier had tried to make him sign an organ donation form. He enters a dark room and finds bodies whose organs have been removed. He is horrified and quickly leaves the room. He continues searching for Perry and finally finds her in the operating room, where a group of doctors are preparing to remove her organs. Ray storms in with the gun, forces the doctors away from his daughter, and finds that Joan is also in the room. He places both of them on a wheelchair. Before he can escape, the doctors seize him and prepare a sedative injection to give him. But Ray uses the gun to strike a device in the room and causes it to explode in the doctors' faces. He manages to escape with his daughter and wife. On the way out, one of the doctors confronts them, but Ray shoots him. He successfully escapes with his daughter and wife from the hospital, puts them in his car, and flees toward home. On the way, Perry wakes up and tells him that her arm still hurts, so Ray sings to her to help her forget the pain. At this moment, it is revealed that everything that happened was only hallucinations in his mind, and that neither Joan nor Perry actually exist there. The people in the car are not them, but two other patients who are in the middle of surgery and are under anesthesia. It is revealed that Perry died when she fell onto the concrete, and that when he pushed his wife away from him, she fell onto a piece of protruding metal and died. His mind refuses to accept that he himself killed both his daughter and his wife. Therefore, his mind created the illusion that his wife and daughter were still alive. We then discover that the bodies of Joan and Perry are in the trunk of the car, yet Ray continues driving home normally, as if nothing had happened.